These are the most hated brands in America. What are they? You guessed it right, my friends. You guessed it right. I guessed it right. You love this. You'll love this. Uber, Domino's, Microsoft. These are some of the biggest brands in the world. But according to a new report, these are also the brands that receive the most hate on Twitter. I wonder why. The product review blog Rave Reviews used social media sentiment, right? They just look at social media across the board and see what people have to write. Analysis tool SentiStrength, developed by a computer science professor at the University of Wolverhampton, thanks to you, my friend, to analyze more than 1 million tweets about 100 of the biggest global brands. It then studied the percentage of positive and negative tweets each brand received, ranking them by location and category. Some findings were to be expected. Uber, a company that has been the target of controversy, from mistreating drivers to increasing prices during the pandemic, was the most hated brand in the United States. I would say the most hated brand in the world, right? And I've been reporting on this all along. I've said, Uber, you are the most hated brand. I said, Dara Khosrowshahi, you the most hated CEO. Why do you think, folks, why do you think I am so vocal, right? Why do you think I keep on calling this shit out every single day? Because there is an abundance of negative news on these companies, and they treat people like crap, right? So if you haven't learned this yet, but the only way to deal with people like this or companies like this is to stick it to them, right? They got this award, the crappiest, most hated company in the United States, and I would argue in the world. Got to stick it to them, my friends, right? So some findings were to be expected. Like I said, Uber, a company that has been the target of controversy from mistreating drivers to increasing prices during the pandemic, was the most hated brand in the United States, with nearly half of all the tweets being negative. Half of the tweets are negative. But there were also some surprises in the mix. Lego, I mean, why would Lego be hated? The popular toy brand was the second most hated brand. Or the little kids tweeting, oh, I hate Lego, my Legos are falling apart, or bad Legos. No idea why Lego got that award. The popular toy brand was the second most hated brand, and Domino's, which thrived during the pandemic, was the most hated fast food brand. Had no idea, right? So there it is. I'm going to put the link below so you can have a look at that, right, and go through that report. There were also regional differences in terms of which brands received the most negative tweets. Uber was the most hated in 8 states, including California and Arizona. I wonder why. I wonder why they are hated in California. Something tells me maybe Proposition 22 and taking away all those privileges that you promised, that you baited and switched all those California and Arizona drivers, right? And then screwed them over. Dara, Arsehole of the Year award goes to you, right? The king of arseholes, Dara Khosrowshahi. CEO that leads the most hated company in the world, Uber, is this prick, Dara. That's a title to be proud of, Dara. Proud of. But you know what? We're going to dethrone you. We're going to dethrone your company, because we have all those people and those warriors and those soldiers and those millions of drivers that are not going to tolerate your BS anymore, right? So Uber was the most hated in 8 states, including California and Arizona, while Lego was the most hated in 6 states. I freaking don't know why Lego. I love Lego. By the way, as a kid, I grew up on Lego. While Lego was the most hated in 6 states, including Massachusetts and Connecticut. In Washington, D.C., nearly 60% of tweets about Apple were negative. Really? In Maine, There's a lot of products from Apple that I really, really love, including my new iPhone 13 Pro Max in Chrome. In Washington, D.C., nearly 60% of tweets about Apple were negative. In Maine, more than 80% of tweets about McDonald's were negative. And in Oregon, more than half the tweets about Pepsi were negative. There is that chart. The most hated brand in every state. Interesting facts. It's important to note that consumers are much more likely to tweet about negative experiences than positive ones. That is so true. We are far quicker to criticize than to praise. That's how humans. So if you go to a restaurant and you have a phenomenal meal, great waiter, great food, usually, you leave a tip, but do you say, hey, you know what, praise? Hey, manager, I would like you to know that waitress was phenomenal, right? We tend to say, well, you know what, the food was cold, bad service, didn't come in time, the food. So usually negative experiences outnumber the positive ones. That is true. According to Luke Doyle, a digital PR specialist at Neomam Studios, which rave reviews commissioned to do this research, and mega brands with enormous audiences tend to get more attention on Twitter. This study looked at the 100 top brands according to Google search volume. A huge global brand like Uber, Lego, or Sony is naturally going to have more tweets about it, says Doyle. When you have an enormous number of customers, you're bound to upset some of them. It just goes hand in hand with being a brand of this size. Now, when they mention Sony, right, so many people still haven't gotten their PS5 or trying to get a PS5. So there's all this hype, little releases. So I could sort of understand why there was a lot of hate towards Sony. It's also worth pointing out that this study looked exclusively at Twitter data, so it tends to reflect brands whose users tended to be active on Twitter. Many of the other most hated brands on Twitter in the United States tended to be tech-forward companies like Sony, Microsoft, Netflix, ESPN, Tesla, and Amazon. It makes sense, for instance, that Uber users who access vehicles on a smartphone app are also more likely to complain about their bad experience on Twitter. There it is. Those passengers, those drivers, they turn to Twitter. I always encourage you, if there's anything about Dara Khosrowshahi, there's going to be a couple of videos today and tomorrow. Use Twitter. Retweet my frickin' videos. Show Dara how you feel. Show the company how you feel. Do not tolerate any BS. If they cut into your earnings, if they give you false reports, if they support fraudulent rider reports, if they deactivate you, pound them, my friends. Pound them and hound them on Twitter, right? That is why they got that award. The most hated brand in the United States. Congratulations, Dara Khosrowshahi, on that title, right? You truly deserve it. That said, it's clear that some brands have far more negative tweets than their competitors. Uber was the most hated brand on Twitter, while its main competitor, Lyft, does not make it into the top 60 most hated brands. Part of this is that Uber, which generated more than $11 billion in revenue in 2020, is significantly larger than Lyft, which brought in just $2.3 billion during that time. With significantly more users, Uber invites more criticism. Meanwhile, even though Lego was the second most hated brand, no other toy companies were on this list. I don't understand that. Again, Lego, how did you get on this list, please? Doyle says that consumers tend to tweet primarily about an immediate negative experience that they had with that brand rather than about the brand's broader values or missions. So in many ways, this study is a way of gauging a brand's level of customer service. When it came to Uber, right, there is no customer service at Uber, right? There are phone centers that don't work overseas, that have no clue what's going on the ground, that are very hard to understand. It's atrocious. There's no customer service at Uber, so don't even bring that up, please. When it came to Uber, for instance, he says that people tended to tweet about expensive rates, feeling unsafe, smelly cars, smelly riders, smelly drivers, and drivers canceling or other unprofessional behaviors. It works both ways. It cannot always just be, oh, bad driver, bad driver. It's both, my friends. Lego received negative tweets from customers complaining about how They were missing pieces in their sets. Missing pieces in their sets. Really? Oh, I have one little Lego block missing. Well, maybe it fell between the couch cushions, right? Or maybe it fell behind your bed. Or maybe it's under the carpet. Oh no, when I want to go and tweet, oh, I'm missing some Lego pieces. Kids, grow up! Got bigger things to complain about, right? Or how expensive the toys were. Many parents also tweeted about how painful it was to step on Lego bricks. Oh, poor parents, you stepped on a little Lego brick. Oh my gosh, I got to go tweet now about my experience.